Hello there, and welcome to episode 4 of A Rose Within the Thorns, where we are looking at our persuasive speech writing. Remember, this is the podcast where we carefully prune back confusion and we grow our clarity in our English studies. So, we are now at one of the most powerful stages in constructing your persuasive speech. Your attention section sparked curiosity, your need built pressure, your satisfaction gave us a practical solution. Now we move to the section that gives your speech emotional force, the visualize section. Today's episode will be guided by those slides that I've been using in every lesson, and we're going to unpack each part carefully to make sure that we understand how we can make our writing purposeful and powerful. So, we're going to look at our learning goal and our success criteria. The goal is pretty clear. It is to understand what the visualize section does and to practice writing a paragraph that helps your audience imagine a future. If we're looking closely at our success criteria, you should be able to explain the purpose of the visualize section, describe what will happen if your solution is adopted. You'll also be able to describe what will happen if nothing changes and we continue on that path. You will use imagery and descriptive language, and lastly you will draft a visualized paragraph with the sole purpose of making your audience emotionally invested. Notice the word invested, not informed, not aware, but invested. This is the shift from explanation to experience. So what is visualize? Visualize comes after your satisfaction. So satisfaction answers the what should we do. Visualize is going to be answering what will life actually look like if we do it or if we don't do it. This section will paint a picture of your future. It will show the benefits, but it'll also show the consequences. And the purpose of this is to make sure it emotionally connects to your audience. This is where you slow down and you let your audience see the outcome, not in theory, but in reality. You are talking about your solution and placing it into everyday life. What is not solution? What is not solution? What is not visualize? Visualize is not introducing new statistics. It is not a repeat of your need paragraph, and it's not another explanation of your solution. And it's definitely not something that should sound like a report. It's kind of like storytelling. And storytelling does not sound like according to research. It sounds like imagine being able to walk through your local park and feeling safe. See the difference? One informs your audience, the other immerses your audience into understanding it. So, the sole purpose of this paragraph should be having your audience see. If your audience thinks here, okay, but I still don't feel anything or see how this is going to work, then that section has probably failed. By the end of your visualize, your audience should feel hopeful, concerned, connected, and ready for action. They should also see how your solution is put into reality. This is not accidental. You're designing this. You choose language that creates an atmosphere, and you choose details that feel real. You help your audience see the future as if it's already unfolding in front of them. Here is the visualize formula. So, think of it as a future with action and a future without action. So, let's slow that down. Firstly, what you're going to do is you're going to describe a positive future. What changes? Who's going to benefit? What improvements are going to be put in place if we actually do your solution? Then you show the real life impact, not an abstract change. I need specific moments. What is it actually going to change? Then you're going to contrast it with a negative future. What happens if we ignore the issue? What happens if we don't go with your solution? What will deteriorate? What becomes normalized? That contrast sharpens your message and it creates emotional tension. It forces the audience to choose. You have just laid out for them their solution, and you're saying, this is what will happen if we go with the solution or if we don't. You're really hoping that they're going to side with going with your solution. So here is my teacher model. I'm going to break this down a little bit better. So it begins. Imagine a community where parents no longer feel nervous letting their children walk home from school. Immediately, what I'm doing is I'm placing you in a scene. We see parks filled again, shops open later, teenagers gaining apprenticeships, and then I contrast this with the alternative. Streets grow quieter, businesses close earlier, young offenders cycle endlessly through the system. That is powerful because it moves from hope to a warning. And you can see there in my last sentence, it ends with the future we experience depends entirely on whether we act now. That line transfers responsibility to the audience. That's what Visualize should do. So, what techniques do we need to use in this section? So, we've got our imagery techniques. So, you can talk about sensory description, what people feel, what they sense. You can describe everyday scenarios or relatable situations. Kind of have it a little bit narrative style, but still making sure it's using persuasive techniques. Your persuasive techniques that you can look at are going to be contrast. You're going to have repetition. You're going to have emotive language and maybe some rhetorical statements. You might want to repeat a phrase like, we can choose prevention, we can choose safety, we can choose change. Repetition there builds rhythm, and rhythm strengthens your delivery. I've given you some sentence starters. In your positive future, just have a look for a moment. We've got imagine a future where, picture a community where, in a few years, families will feel. Notice how future focused these are. When you are showing your benefits, you can use like this would mean as a result, or communities would experience. It's connecting that positive future to what is so beneficial about it. In your negative contrast, it is the exact same structure. You're presenting that negative future and then telling me why it's important that we actually go with your decision because those benefits are more important. That last move is critical. Your visualize is going to prepare your audience for your next paragraph of action. As I've mentioned before, here is your peer feedback. So make sure you get somebody else to read over your work. Get them to answer these 4 questions. Does the paragraph clearly describe the future? Does it include both positive and negative possibilities? Does it use descriptive language? Does it make the audience feel something? That last question, I think, matters most. If it feels flat, it needs more imagery. If it feels disconnected from your solution, make sure you go back and revise it. Visualize must grow directly from your satisfaction section. So, before your next lesson, you need to make sure that your visualize paragraph is completed. Make sure that it sounds like a speech, it's got that imagery use within there, and that you've included one positive and one negative future. Don't treat this as a short add on. This is that emotional climax before your action. This is where your audience sees what is at stake. So, final summary. Visualize is where logic becomes vision. It's where your audience stops thinking in statistics and starts thinking in scenes. It answers that question of what kind of future are we choosing? When this is done well, your audience does not just understand your argument. They see the children walking safely home. They see communities rebuilding, or they see the alternative. And that image absolutely lingers. Well, this has been episode 4 of A Rose Within the Thorns. Next episode, we're going to move into your conclusion. That is your action paragraph, where your vision now becomes the audience's responsibility. Until then, make sure you paint clearly, you contrast boldly, and let your audience see what tomorrow might look like. Thank you.